Yeah, hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you're located. My name is Akash Agarwal, and I'm from EC Council. Today's presenter at 12:45 India Standard Time. At the outset, I would like to thank Red Team and all the team members there, specifically the dynamic Jaisal, who has envisaged this, who has thought about this, and has been running this for past so many years very, very successfully. I had an opportunity to be there in person last year, and I was among them shaking hands. Unfortunately, um, we are all virtual today. So I'll request the backstage in case there's any issue in voice or video or the presentation. Please let me know the way you can. Thank you very much. So while I say that unfortunately we're not able to make up, but there have been a lot of fortunate incidents where the technology has and the current situation has enabled us to move faster than what we were earlier and look into tomorrow's communication, what it would be. Now, what would have happened if COVID were not there? We wouldn't have been under lockdown and the things wouldn't have been the way they are today. Apparently, what I feel after kind of going through it myself and talking to a lot of people globally, reading a lot of material online, so, what I understood from all this was that when we talk about technology and tomorrow's communication, this tomorrow would have come the day after tomorrow or even the later days. But what COVID did was it brought the day after tomorrow earlier, and here we are talking about technology and tomorrow's communication. So this is a COVID enforced change, as we all know. There has been an evolution of technology. This is a pretty much circulated meme, so most of you have already seen it. The idea is to actually show that how much dependent we've been become on technology, and how are we going to see that this is going to even further become more evolved, and the evolution that you see here on the screen has taken millions of years, but the new evolution that we are going to talk about, or the technology of tomorrow, is not going to take long, very long. So when we talk about our lives, which is actually centered around technology, when we talk about social media, for example, social life, I mean, much has already been said about it. We are from in person to social network. Entertainment. We used to sit around a tree some 50 years ago, but now we are Netflixing ourselves in our living rooms. We talk about communication. Communication. This is the topic of today, but it's important for us to understand that just 50 years ago, when the Queen of England's coronation was happening, it was one of the first first of those most televised events. After which the television era exploded, and it took us so many years to 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 be able to uh, come to a stage where we are talking on a mobile device. But the things are going to be faster now. Things are going to be very, very fast now. Uh, it was I think around World War, one of these world wars where Alan Turing's, it was I think World War One, when Alan Turing, who came up with this idea of artificial intelligence, who was asked to decode or decrypt certain uh, messages or communication that was happening across the various countries, and they had their positions of the naval ships, etc., who who they were not able to decode that particular thing. So there were scientists, there were mathematicians who were actually involved in doing that decoding thing manually. But Alan Turing built up a machine that could artificially learn who could decode it with the help of a machine. And since then, it took us so many years to come to this stage. All I'm trying to say is this is going to get accelerated even faster than it was happening earlier. The travel from no travel to a cumbersome travel to fast travel. I mean, from no travel earlier, people used to travel on feet. Then they had those rugged machines, etc. Where they used some 120 years ago. They started with motor vehicles and so on, and then their aeroplane came, and now the travel is again going into oblivion. Possibly we might not travel in future, unless very essential. You would see the robotics and things like that would come in. The research itself has become so easy but so dangerous as well. uh, well, let us talk about this advancement. What has happened is this advancement has actually crippled our way forward. We need to be very careful. Careful about what? Careful about which direction are we going to take? Is this the direction that machines are going to give us? Or is this the direction that the humans are going to take?
So,
All right. So we were talking about advancement, and that advancement in technology has made the machines to think. Now, when they are thinking, which means they might be giving a direction to the technology that you're coming up with. They may be giving direction. So we need to be a bit wary about the kind of direction that we are taking. We must know which direction we are taking specifically. Let's take some examples. COVID came somewhere around October last year, and we went on into lockdown in March. And ever since, there has been a series of researches happening on coming up on the advent of vaccines. There has never been in a history, possibly whatever I read or being told, that a vaccine could come up so fast. How? Why? Which direction have we taken? What kind of vaccine is there in our hands? So is this the direction that was taken up by the machines, or is this the direction that was taken up by humans? So remember, guys, while we are talking about communication in tomorrow's world, we must know that we brought 50 years into the next 1 or 2 years, which means we've advanced or accelerated the pace of our technology advancement. But we must always be wary about how fast we are going to be in this case. So COVID has been a great reset. There are certain examples that I could actually quote. I was reading the one of the interviews of CEO of Verizon. So he's a New York-based gentleman who mentioned about that the number of telephone calls or the number of messages have gone to a level which actually used to be at peak during the peak times in pre-COVID eras. So, for example, during Christmas, during Mother's Day, during such festivities, when there used to be peak of messages and calls, the peak has now become normal, which means we are using the technology, we are using these communication device even faster now. It also says that for example, they have roughly 9 billion messages on our network in the US every day. That's the same as New Year Eve. And this is constant. This is very important for us to understand. Now, as you know, that a cell tower actually catches the network from your cell and it transmits it to the next one where as you travel further. But this has reduced by almost 33 to 50%, which means people have stopped moving and the business is going on. There are certain economies which have grown back or at a faster pace than others to the pre-COVID eras, which means people are able to work, specifically those who can work from home, are able to communicate with each other. They have evolved several new ways and new forms of communicating while they could work from anywhere. While people, millennials, my next generations, they would be very happy because virtually they can work from anywhere. They can work while traveling, while having a constant job with them. So it has been a great reset, COVID 19. And as several of the experts are talking, this is not the last pandemic. Wait for another one, brace for impact. So it's important that we understand that which direction we are taking. When we talk about the day after tomorrow has happened today, which means it could accelerate even faster. Are you ready for this? Is the question that you must be asking yourselves and people working around you. Now, what has been the business impact? We all know about this, but let us revisit this. It'll give you a food for thought, which is the purpose of this talk today. When we talk about, say, family impact, so while we are working now, first we talked about the individual impact. Now we are talking about the family impact. Now, when which all these impacts. Now, the impact of your surroundings on your business is something that you must be very, very cognizant of. Talking about family impact. So I have me and my family members here who are staying at home. They're also working or studying at schools and universities, which means they would be using the same network that I'm using. They would be using almost the same machine. Sometimes my machine is being used by my family members also for some purpose or the other. I have an iPad, for example. Maybe I'm watching Netflix on it. Maybe I'm listening to music on it, which probably while in office, I may not open those sites which I'm not supposed to open while I'm working on a workflow in business. Talking about policies, we suddenly were shifted or shunted to homes and to work from there. Has our cybersecurity have our cybersecurity experts been able to build up those policies? Have our cybersecurity departments in our organizations been able to implement, if at all those policies were there? Which means which network to use, which not. What are those policies related to your computer? Can those policies which were there in office be implemented at home? Very difficult, very, very difficult. So, for example, data protection issues. Now, there are several functions and several segments or sectors of the industries that require, say, for example, testing of a software before it is deployed. Now, that testing, if you're doing it at home and somebody is watching from across your shoulders, your family member could be working with a competition or something like that. Usually in office, you would be firewalled with an enterprise or military grade firewall mechanisms. At home, it is very difficult. And as I said, the policies are not there. So what are those issues? It gives rise to the trust issues. And then, not to mention, there will be technology issues, but because at the end of the day, you're just using your a home Wi-Fi. They are not yet enterprise grade Wi-Fi. They haven't supplied in most parts of the world unless you're working for such high tech operations, not even organization operations, that they might invest in you to provide you enterprise grade. But as they say, if it is not provided to each and every one in the organization, it will be difficult for them. So these are those issues which are written on the screen, the policy, the technology, the trust, and so on and so forth, which will have impact on the businesses. And they will have very, very bad impact on the businesses. So while we talk about the personal thing, while we talk about the business thing, we are talking about whether these communication, whether tomorrow's communication will be the same as it was earlier, and how would it be? The more important question is, do we know what kind of communication is going to be there? So we are in Industry 4.0. To the uninitiated, you know, the Industrial Revolution number one was mechanization and so on and so forth. Revolution number two, the motorizations, the mass production, assembly line, etc., came up. Revolution number three was computer and automation. And now is the fourth, when everything is being connected. That's the fourth revolution, Industry 4.0, as we call, and that's where we are in. What are we doing here? We're making our factories, we're making our offices smart. I mean, people talk about the Alexas and the Siris at home, but we are in the world of robotics, we are in the world of drones, we are in the world of IoTs. So all these things are there where our factories and our workplaces will be well connected. Why? For obvious reasons, that we want our operations to be smoother than or to be faster than what they are. We do not want to employ manpower for the repetitive or mundane jobs or hazardous jobs. So we're making these factories smart. Industry 4.0. Let's start talking about what is transformation, what is happening in the industry. Let us understand this so that you understand that till yesterday, when you were communicating at a particular level, where you will have to communicate now on. So we've all heard about this word called digital transformation. But now in the recessionary times, specifically Corona-induced recessionary times, as I mentioned, digital transformation is all the more important. We need people to be digitally connected. We need the information to be analyzed, to be synthesized faster than it was earlier. We need all these things because we need to come back to the pre-COVID eras very, very quickly. So, which means if you are not a part of that communication channel, maybe you will feel like lost out. Things are being worked out in real time. There are multiple things worked out together, as you would see in my subsequent mentions and the slides. So you got to understand what this digital transformation is. What are those things that your organization, or maybe if you're studying somewhere, your institution is implementing? For example, I see a lot of university undergraduates who are studying online classes these days, let alone the teachers who are finding it difficult. I'm observing that even the students are finding it difficult to study online. Trust me, it is so very important for them to do it, lest they lose their year or maybe two if the next pandemic comes in. What if 2021 again we spend in lockdown? Don't you understand? Don't you think that you have to understand this digital transformation very, very much? Because the acceleration of digital transformation in these recessionary times has increased. Now, let us understand how is it happening. So, how are we communicating? We are communicating basically on four platforms. This is one of the Deloitte research I took this from. Aggregation platforms, as we've seen. So let us divide this into four platforms. First is aggregation. We've seen the eBays, the Amazon, and the Flipkarts of the world who aggregate, or maybe Spotify, for example, that aggregates music and provide it to you, which means even you can say Uber, for that matter, is an aggregation platform, Uber, Ola, and so on. So what is happening is you have to communicate at this level, aggregation platform, where we've got these this kind of a platform, which is now becoming more and more prevalent, and you will see them happening more and more there because of building up the economies of scale, providing you with convenience, providing you with better services, and wherever you need it. It also provides a lot of employment and so on. So it actually helps the economy, as I mentioned, accelerated digital transformation. Social platforms. While we all are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchats, and so forth, but what's important to understand is that people are using it for business now. People are using, I mean, yesterday or maybe last week, the founder of Facebook, he was talking about he in fact warned us that while you're using it for business, make sure that you are using the plugins properly. In other words, if you're using Facebook on your website, any of their add-ons on your website, or to pull data from there, make sure the data privacy of your website and whatever you're going to put in is maintained, is intact. So it's important that while you're using social platforms, you know the principles of communication out there, you know the privacy laws and the terms and conditions out there. It's very important for you to understand that. The third kind of platform that we talk about is the mobilizing platform. We are all aware of it. It actually takes the common interest into action, and they go just beyond the conversation and interest, and it actually focuses on moving people to act together to accomplish the larger goal. Say, for example, we talk about Linux or Apache or any other open source platforms where you are building up something which you're building it together. I mean, someone else is bringing something, so 10 people working on it together to build something for the usage of a larger set of people. So these are mobilizing platforms. Are you aware how to use this or communicate to these mobilizing platforms? And finally, the fourth one is learning platforms. You would have heard about learning management systems. You, as if you are in business or if you are a student, everyone today is using learning management systems and the learning platforms. So it's important that we all communicate on this. Now, why am I saying this? This is the future. These four platforms together are going to be of a size of $3 trillion, which means imagine the kind of investments, and I'm talking about 2021, imagine the kind of investments that are going to go into it. When such investments go into it, there would be people who would be on it, and there would be people who would be left out. So people on this call, I would like to tell you that have an understanding of this platform, because this is the future. People are going to invest tens of trillions of dollars on this in the coming decades. So it's important also to understand the augmented reality, virtual reality, and the mixed reality, which is reshaping the communication and learning, both in academia and enterprise. We had a glitch while talking. The backstage told me that, okay, they cannot see this or that, but there would be a time, and there's technology already being tested while we speak, that the learning would not be the way we are doing it today. Once again, maybe next year when we meet again, I would be sitting at home, but maybe my holographic image would be there in the conference room out there. And so would be yours. In other words, we would be using these technologies to communicate face to face virtually. So it's important for us to understand what is this and implement in our day-to-day life. Because if we do not do it, we will be left behind and it will be difficult for you to kind of catch up. Remember, there was a school of thought where professors used to tell that, well, in-person class is the best, and I would prefer that. I would rather go in for that. I would not go online, and so on and so forth. Well, I believe, and I know, and I'm also of the same school of thought that in-person, physically sitting across the table is the best way of communicating. However, very, very limiting. So the next best thing is this, but that next best thing is being advanced so much that we need to be a part of it and we need to live in that world. The difference between the best and the next best is reducing. So understand these points, which are so very important for each one of you. Now, there's something else which I wanted to tell you. We are all using the Siris and Alexas and Cortanas. Maybe some of you might be using, okay, Google, tell me when is my cab arriving, or okay, Google, wake me up at this, or hey Siri, and so on and so forth. We always say these things. But let's take an example, two examples, in fact. First example is I'm writing an email, and I wrote to Jaisal, for example, and I'm writing in a particular tonality to Jaisal. And I interact like 6 times a day with him. 2 on emails, 3 times on, 2 on phones and 2 on emails and 1 in person, for instance. Now, my mobile phone has been listening to this, and it knows that what is my tonality. It has been reading my emails. So it knows what kind of tonality I use with Jaisal. It knows Jaisal's position, the way he's the CEO of RedTeam. So when I write to him in a particular tonality, Siri or Alexa or so-called SelfSwear will suggest me to write in a particular way because Jaisal is this, and I have to interact with him in a particular way. It will ask me whether I should write it like this, or I should just click OK, still you get going with it. So understand this, self-swear is another thing which is very, very important for us to understand. The other could be, for example, when you ask which are those movies around my area where I'm living in Hyderabad, for example, today, instead of telling me the movies, just the movies or the list of movies, a self-swear will tell me, hey, based on the choices that you've made in the past and based on the time of the day and based on the person whom you are going with, I would suggest this movie. Shall I book the ticket for you? So remember, guys, this is the way forward. This is where Industry 4.0 is taking the level of communication to. Remember this. While I'm talking about all this, it must have given you a thought. My goodness, my mobile phone is listening to me. Every other device for that matter is listening to you, man. And while they are listening to you, it's important for us to note that we must know how to keep ourselves secure so that while it is listening, it doesn't steal away your money that also resides in your mobile phone. So these are those things which are important. 5G is another 6 months away in India, just 6 months away. So while it is difficult today to use a VR, AR enabled things, let me tell you, next December, we would be having those holographic image, etc., thanks to these 5G, which will be there on your mobile phone. So the 1 Gbps or 2 Gbps or 3 Gbps will become very, very affordable. And the service provider that is talking about bringing it up by June, July, you know how easy and cheap it gives. So you can imagine the kind of connectivity we'll all have just maybe what, 6 to 8 months from now. So brace yourself up. It's important because if you're not a part of it, you'll lose that. The AIs, the drones, the robotics, and all those things that are there today, you must become a part of it. If not, you know where to reach out. The organizers of this conference, and they'll tell you more about this. It's important for us to understand that we are secure. Security is very important at 2 or 3 levels we must understand. First of all, if I'm using a mobile phone, for example, so I must know how to use it more securely. Otherwise, there's no point of me carrying a mobile phone because I may press a wrong button and havoc may get created. Imagine I was talking about the in business impact family thing that I was talking about. Now think about it. You've got a family, you've got a small kid, for example, and he's got a mobile phone, a smartphone, that too, which is connected to the same Wi Fi, and he clicks on a wrong link that was sent as a phishing message to him. And the entire malware gets downloaded to that network, which might creep into your own laptop and might impact or give the access to the person who had sent that malware. So not just you, but each one of your family member must be very, very secure. They must understand what is cybersecurity and what are those things which are required to be trained to the people who are using any kind of computing device. Trust me, guys, even those not so smartphones carry those links. They might get downloaded. So whichever can get connected to internet is a computing device. Your iPad, your computers, your desktop, laptop, and other wearables, etc., notwithstanding. So there are any which ways where a computing device, I'm talking about a thing as mundane as a not so smart mobile phone. So that's one level of security, which we call as security awareness that you must all have. Then we talk about when you are around yourself. So take a note whether this guy really knows it, whether his computing device may have the right kind of software or not. For example, if it has a pirated software, you may not ask, but you may get an idea about it. So before you share your Wi-Fi password with anyone, the one that you're using for your office or for any other important purpose, for instance, you must know about that and ensure that that you at least are secured and teach other guys how to be secured. So there are several layers of security that you must have even while communicating. A innocent looking Facebook message or an Instagram post might carry those malwares. So beware about this. It's a very, very important thing that you must be aware of. Privacy. Now, I don't know what exactly privacy, or does it even exist? People are striving very hard. They brought in GDPR, they brought in a lot of things. Now, Apple, for example, is trying to, I mean, these are hack attacks that happen every second now. Apple has brought in something called a cyber. They're working on cyber nutrition label. So if you want an app, and this is just an example of one of the smart devices actually. Now, Apple brought in this thing. They say that if you want an app to be loaded on App Store, it must carry a cyber nutrition label, similar to what any of your ketchup or any other food item thing would have an FDA stamp on it. So similarly, it will have a cyber nutrition label, which we'll talk about. Number one, it provides the basic product information, including the device name, version number, and where it was manufactured. This part, the green color, number one. It will have the security mechanisms mentioned there. It will give the consumers information about the device's security, such as whether updates will be automatic or you'll have to do a manual update on it. If the users can gain access to the device, such as through a manufacturer set password, or you can change the password. So all that information would be given on it. So I was talking about how secure you could be in terms of knowing it yourself, versus even the companies, the respectable companies like Apple, they are trying to make it even more visible in front of you, so that you can kind of, if you've missed it, you'll at least read it. So they'll make it so very clear to you: sensor type, purpose, and so on and so forth. So consumer can also see whether multiple account users are allowed, or if there is an option for multi-factor authentication or biometric login. For those of you who are not aware of two-factor authentication, maybe get a feel of it. You'll understand what it means. Then data practices. It outlines 4 mechanisms the device could use for data collection: video, audio, physiological, and location. So it'll also tell you how will it collect, how will it listen to you, how will it see you. So for example, my mobile phone, it listens to me, it sees me. So when I say, hey Siri, it will pick up. So these are those things which it will mention about. And data practices, it outlines 4 mechanisms the device could use for data collection. I'm talking about this specific one, for example. So there are several IoT. So for example, I have a home center, which my microwave and my refrigerator, my light bulbs, they are connected to each other, so that I can control it from my mobile app. These are the devices that are going to come. Very soon you're going to see this. So these things are not very far. If you want to be a part of tomorrow's world, you should know about all these things very, very clearly. So cybersecurity post-COVID is going to be a different cybersecurity altogether, not the one that we've been listening to, not the one that we've been hearing about. Do you think, if you're not in cybersecurity, maybe you're studying geography, maybe you're studying history, not science even, not mathematics, let alone computing, even then cybersecurity is very, very important for you. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for a patient hearing today. If you've got any questions, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal, for the wonderful rich session that we had. So it was very encouraging, gripping, as well as very interesting. So I'm extremely grateful to you for joining RedTeam Security Summit and delivering such a rich session for us. Okay. So I'm also extend my sincere gratitude to the audience for being part of RedTeam Security Summit. Okay. You can kindly move on to the next sessions that we have. And once again, I take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks to the speaker. So thanks everyone for being part of RedTeam Security Summit 2020. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Divakar. Thank you.